The BRICS collective, made up of Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa, have reportedly decided on creating a new currency to facilitate trade. It is reported that the new financial agreement could be seen as soon as in August when the countries meet for their annual summit in South Africa. Sources have disclosed that Russia is behind the idea, as it has faced economic sanctions from the West over invasion of Ukraine. The US dollar has been the official currency for international trade for years now. However, in recent times there has been talk of creating a new currency in an attempt to dump the dollar and push back against American hegemony. This de-dollarization has received a boost in recent times, especially after the Russia-Ukraine war began last February. And last week, this movement received further impetus when Alexander Babakov, the deputy chairman of the State Duma, was quoted as saying that the BRICS nations are in the process of creating a new medium for payments, established on a strategy that does not defend the dollar or euro. Are the BRICS nations actually creating a new currency for trade? Who's at the forefront of this movement? There are several questions to this issue and we try to answer them all. Dethroning the king of currency. The US dollar has been called the king of currency. It became the official reserve currency of the world in 1944. The decision was made by a delegation from 44 allied countries called the Bretton Woods Agreement. Since then, the dollar has enjoyed a powerful status in the world. It has given the US a disproportionate amount of influence over other economies. In fact, the US has for long used imposition of sanctions as a tool to achieve foreign policy goals. However, not everybody likes playing by US rules, and countries like Russia and China would like to call a halt to dollar hegemony. This process is called de-dollarisation, and it refers to reducing the dollar's dominance in global markets. It is a process of substituting the US dollar as the currency used for trading oil and/or other commodities. China and Brazil recently finalized a trade deal in their own currencies, completely bypassing the dollar. But that's not the only bad news for the world's reserve currency. Last week, a Russian official announced that the BRICS nations are working to develop a new currency, yet another sign that dollar dominance is waning. State Duma, the Russian Legislative Assembly, Deputy Chairman Alexander Babakov was quoted saying, "The transition to settlements in national currencies is the first step." We've already seen this occur with recent oil deals between India and Russia being settled in currencies other than dollars. The next one is to provide the circulation of digital, or any other form of a fundamentally new currency in the nearest future. I think that at the BRICS Leaders Summit, the readiness to realize this project will be announced. Such works are underway, said the chairman. That summit is scheduled for August. Babakov said the BRICS nations are developing a strategy that does not defend the dollar or euro, and that a single currency would likely emerge within BRICS, pegged to gold or other groups of products, rare earth elements, or soil. Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa make up the BRICS bloc. It accounts for about 40% of the global population and a quarter of the global GDP. Last year, Iran officially applied to join BRICS, and according to a report by The Cradle, several nations have expressed interest in joining the bloc, including Saudi Arabia, Algeria, UAE, Egypt, Argentina, Mexico, and Nigeria. Former Goldman Sachs chief economist Jim O'Neill coined the BRIC acronym. In a recent paper published by Global Policy Journal, he urged the expansion of BRICS. The US dollar plays a far too dominant role in global finance, he wrote. Whenever the Federal Reserve Board has embarked on periods of monetary tightening, or the opposite, loosening, the consequences on the value of the dollar and the knock-on effects have been dramatic. It's clear that many countries are trying to minimize their exposure to the dollar. Confidence in the greenback continues to erode thanks to the profligate borrowing, spending and money creation by the US government. America's use of the dollar as a foreign policy weapon also makes many countries wary of relying solely on dollars. According to the International Monetary Fund (IMF), the dollar's share of global foreign exchange reserves fell below 59% at the end of 2021, extending a two-decade decline. Strikingly, the decline in the dollar's share has not been accompanied by an increase in the shares of the pound sterling, yen and euro, other long-standing reserve currencies. Rather, the shift out of dollars has been in two directions: a quarter into the Chinese renminbi, and 3/4 into the currencies of smaller countries that have played a more limited role as reserve currencies. This is a big problem for the US government. Uncle Sam depends on the demand for dollars to underpin its profligate borrowing and spending. The only reason the US can get away with massive budget deficits and an ever-growing national debt to the extent that it does is due to the dollar's role as the world reserve currency. It creates a built-in global demand for dollars and US treasuries that absorb the money creation and maintain dollar strength. But what happens if that demand drops? What happens if BRICS develops its own currency and no longer needs dollars to trade? If the demand for dollars tanks, the greenback's value will quickly erode away. That means even worse price inflation for Americans. And in the worst-case scenario, it could collapse the dollar completely. The proponents of de-dollarisation say that this process would reduce other countries' dependence on the US dollar and the US economy, which could help mitigate the impact of economic and political changes in the US on their own economies. Moreover, countries can reduce their exposure to currency fluctuations and interest rate changes, which can help to improve economic stability and reduce the risk of financial crises. The dollar's share of global foreign exchange reserves fell below 59% in the final quarter of last year, extending a two-decade decline, according to the IMF's currency composition of official foreign exchange reserves data. To punish Russia for its invasion of Ukraine, Western governments froze $300 billion of Russia's foreign currency reserves last year, roughly half the total, and expelled Russian banks from the SWIFT international payments system. As Jason Hollins explains, the so-called dollar weaponization has rattled many countries and not just Russia. Countries willing to continue to trade with Russia, like India and China, have started doing so in rupees and yuan instead, triggering talk of the de-dollarization of the international trading order. India too has been trying to move away from the dollar. Recently 18 countries, including UK, Germany, Russia and even the United Arab Emirates, have been given permission to trade in Indian rupees. In February, noted economist Nouriel Roubini had said that the Indian rupee over time could become one of the global reserve currencies in the world. In an interview to ET Now, the economist nicknamed Dr. Doom had said, "One can see how the rupiah could become for some of the trade that India does with the rest of the world. Especially South-South trade could become a vehicle currency. Indian rupee could be a unit of account. It could be a means of payment, it could become a store of value. Certainly, rupiah over time could become one of the variety of global reserve currencies in the world, the BRICS currency." Taking this forward, Alexander Babakov highlighted the fact that Russia and India would both benefit from the creation of a common currency that could be used for payments, calling it the most viable route to take at this time. New Delhi. Moscow should institute a new economic association with a new shared currency, which could be a digital ruble or the Indian rupee, Babakov was quoted as saying. He went on to note that China would also play a crucial role in the development of a common currency as it would add an additional 1.4 billion participants to the system. New Delhi. Beijing and Moscow are the nations that now institute a multipolar world that is endorsed by the majority of governments, he said. Its composition should be based on inducting new monetary ties established on a strategy that does not defend the US dollar or euro, but rather forms a new currency competent of benefiting our shared objectives. Interestingly, Brazil already has begun to accept trade settlements and investments in yuan. India and Russia have the rupee-ruble mechanism for trade in which they settle dues in rupees instead of dollars or euros. This shows that the BRICS nations are intending to change the dollar-dominated system, which would eventually lead to de-dollarization across the globe. Implications of a BRICS currency. If the BRICS nations do go ahead with their plan and come up with a new currency, it could help stabilize their economies. For an investor in BRICS countries, it would mean increased consumer confidence. This would lead to an uptick in spending and economic growth. But will Russia and India accept this new currency? Will it want to be economically aligned with China, with whom it is having a standoff at the border? Moreover, some experts say that this new deal might benefit Beijing more than New Delhi and Moscow. What happens next is unknown. But the fact that the dollar is losing power is certain. A BRICS single gold trading system would facilitate the creation of a new gold pricing benchmark based upon global physical gold trading rather than gold derivatives. Combined with the gold-backed trading of yuan oil futures, oil producers could swap oil for gold rather than for US Treasury securities, further de-dollarizing the global oil market. Apart from de-dollarization, a BRICS single gold trading system would also help to strengthen domestic currency stability because it would free BRICS members from being subject to foreign pricing. What are your thoughts on BRICS, and do you think it will overthrow the US dollar? Let me know down below. That's it for today's video, and I hope you have a better understanding of BRICS and their push for de-dollarization. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.